High school was supposed to be the best years of my life, but for me, it became a waking nightmare. It all began in the locker room, an old, decrepit place that hadn't been renovated in decades. The seniors told stories about it being cursed, but we all laughed it off, that is, until it started happening to us. It was after gym class one afternoon when I first noticed it. I was the last one to leave, and as I was getting dressed, I heard a faint, scratching noise. It seemed to be coming from one of the lockers. At first, I thought it was a rat or some other vermin, but when I opened the locker, it was empty. The scratching stopped immediately. The next day, it happened again, but this time, I wasn't alone. My friend James was with me, and he heard it too. We opened the locker together, and again, nothing was inside. But there was something different this time. A faint, musty smell, like something rotting. Over the next few weeks, the scratching grew louder and more frequent. It wasn't just one locker anymore, it was all of them. The smell intensified, and we started finding strange things inside the lockers. Dead birds, bloodstains, and even what looked like old, decaying human teeth. James and I decided to investigate. We snuck into the school late at night, determined to find the source of the strange occurrences. The locker room was pitch black, the only light coming from our flickering torches. As we approached the lockers, the scratching became deafening, almost as if whatever was inside was trying to claw its way out. Then the lockers began to rattle violently one by one, as if something was inside each of them, desperately trying to escape. We stood frozen in terror as the doors began to swing open on their own, revealing nothing but darkness inside. Suddenly, the room plunged into darkness and the temperature dropped drastically. We heard footsteps echoing through the room, but when we shone our torches around, there was no one there. Then, out of nowhere, a shadowy figure appeared, standing right in front of us. It was tall, with long, bony fingers and hollow eyes that seemed to pierce right through us. The figure lunged at us and we bolted out of the locker room, not stopping until we were outside the school. The next day, we went to the principal, but when we told him what had happened, he just shook his head. He said the locker room had been the site of a gruesome murder years ago, and the victim's spirit was said to haunt the place, but no one had ever seen the spirit until now. We never went back to that locker room again, and we weren't the only ones. Soon, word spread, and the school shut down the entire wing. But sometimes, late at night, you can still hear the scratching, and if you listen closely, the faint whispers of the forgotten soul trapped inside. I always knew there was something off about Franklin High, but I never expected to uncover the truth. The rumors of it being haunted seemed like just another silly story passed down through generations of students. That was until I found myself face to face with the entity that has haunted the halls for decades. It started one evening when I was staying late to finish a project in the art room. The school was eerily quiet, the kind of silence that makes your skin crawl. As I packed up my things, I noticed something strange, a portrait hanging on the wall, one that I had never seen before. It was of a girl, her eyes hauntingly hollow, staring right at me. The nameplate beneath the portrait read, Emily Crawford, class of 1974. Curiosity got the better of me, and I decided to look her up in the school archives. What I discovered sent chills down my spine. Emily had been a student at Franklin High who mysteriously disappeared after being accused of practicing dark rituals. No one ever found her, but rumors persisted that her spirit lingered, seeking revenge on those who wronged her. As I walked through the deserted hallways, I began to feel like I was being watched. The air grew colder, and the once familiar corridors seemed to twist and turn, leading me deeper into the darkness. I heard faint whispers echoing through the walls, unintelligible, yet terrifying. My heart pounded as I quickened my pace, desperate to find my way out. Then I saw her. Emily stood at the end of the hallway, her figure barely visible in the dim light. Her eyes locked onto mine, and I was paralyzed with fear. Slowly, she started to move toward me, her feet never touching the ground. I could feel her cold breath on my neck as she whispered, "They will pay. They will all pay." I ran, the fear overwhelming me. But no matter how fast I went, the hallways never ended. It was as if I was trapped in a labyrinth with no escape. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, until they were all I could hear. I finally stumbled into a classroom, slamming the door behind me. But when I turned around, Emily was already inside. The last thing I remember before blacking out was her icy hand touching my shoulder and the room spinning around me. When I woke up, it was morning, and I was lying on the floor of the art room. Everything seemed normal. No sign of Emily, no cold air, no whispers. But the portrait was gone. No one believed my story, of course, but I know what I saw. Every time I walk through those halls, I can feel her presence, watching, waiting. And I know that one day she'll come for me again. There was a room in our high school that no one dared enter. Room 304. The door was always locked and the windows were boarded up, but every so often you'd hear someone whisper about the ghost that lived there. It was the kind of story that got passed down from one class to the next, growing darker with each retelling. I didn't believe in ghosts, but when my friends dared me to spend a night in room 304, I couldn't say no. It was supposed to be just a stupid prank, a way to prove that I wasn't scared. So, on a cold Friday night, I found myself standing outside the door of room 304, the key in my hand. The door creaked open and I stepped inside. The room was dark, with a musty smell that made my nose wrinkle. The air was thick, and the only light came from the moon filtering through the cracks in the boarded-up windows. The room was empty, except for an old wooden desk and a chair, both covered in dust. I set up my sleeping bag in the corner, trying to ignore the eerie feeling that crept up my spine. The silence was deafening, broken only by the occasional creak of the floorboards. I kept telling myself that it was just an old room, nothing more. But deep down, I felt like I wasn't alone. As the night wore on, I started to doze off, but I was jolted awake by a loud bang. The desk had moved, sliding across the floor on its own. My heart raced as I scrambled to my feet, shining my torch around the room. There was no one there, but I could feel a presence, something cold and malevolent. Then I saw it, a figure standing in the corner, its face obscured by shadows. It was just standing there, watching me. I froze, unable to move or speak. The figure slowly began to move toward me, its footsteps echoing through the room. As it got closer, I could see its face, pale and lifeless, with hollow eyes and a twisted smile that sent chills down my spine. I backed away, but there was nowhere to go. The figure was right in front of me now, its icy breath on my face. I could feel its cold fingers wrapping around my arm, pulling me closer. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. Just when I thought it was over, the figure vanished, and the room was plunged into darkness. I was alone again, but the terror lingered. I bolted out of the room, leaving everything behind, and never looked back.